we end every show with what we call Let's Get Practical, because the last thing we want is for this to be interesting and informative and then nothing come from it. But the value, the ROI always comes from the doing, the walking it out, the execution. So we'll kick it to you. We'll let you go first. What are 2 or 3 suggestions you have for, again, it can be something that we covered today. It's just a quick point that you want to recap, or it could be something we didn't talk about today. But what advice would you have for a frustrated CEO that can help move them forward in their business?
So one is, we talked about this earlier. I think it's when I first started when I started my first business, I was a fairly young CEO, and I felt like I always had to have all the answers. I'd walk into a room and I would spout off all the answers, even if I wasn't sure. And I think over time, what I realized is we have to be better at empowering our team members and pushing more authority and autonomy into the organization. And I think listening to our people is one of the most important skills that we need to learn. So when we talked about, where are we getting feedback, I think actively asking from people that are the closest to the work, closest to the customer, for feedback on how we continue to grow and improve, I think is a really important skill. The second thing, which we really didn't get time to today, but at some point, would love to discuss, is how to think about the intersection of AI and talent. Because AI, I think this is one of the most exciting times that I've ever been a part of, and I was part of when the internet, really became a mainstream. I remember being part of a company where we were told we were never going to be allowed to email anyone outside the company. And of course, that didn't last very long. But I think for companies that are slow to adapt, this is an existential threat. But if you're fast, if you're innovative, I think it's an extraordinary opportunity. So what we're investing in right now is training growth hackers, people that are really excited about going into a company and helping them look at some of the challenges in their business and think about how can we look at AI first, software second, and then people third to solve these business problems. And I think that's a mentality that CEOs are going to need to take now in an aggressive way.
One that's near and dear to both of our hearts, Patrick, is be intentional about your culture. We say that, how do we do things around here? So that is one. Introduce the kind of culture you want to create, practice it, train for it, retrain, practice again. We always say it's organic. So let's see. Empowering your employees to do their best as a core value. As your heart value said, there's 5 areas, know their purpose, that they're client-oriented, that they have access to leadership, they build connected teams, and that they have a career path.
All right. I have a couple that I thought really insightful and very practical. One, kind of an acknowledgement that if remote fails, it's a failure of leadership, not a failure of the strategy, right? And so if it's not working, I always say, man, do the mirror work. Like start in the mirror and figure out what can I do differently, and how can we as a team adjust our leadership approach. I like this short little nugget. Anyone who'll be impacted downstream needs to be involved in the decision making upstream. Again, it's just something that we forget so often, and then we roll something out and there's confusion and chaos because people didn't have a say. And then we find out when we try to roll it out that it actually doesn't work because of how it lands downstream. And then as David, is something you said pretty early on, if you're not consistently and constantly evolving your practices, then you're going to die out. And and maybe that speaks to the AI. And I just read something yesterday. It was earlier today. Read something, as a comment that somebody made on Reddit of all places. That if I see a company that's using AI to generate their images, I'm not going to shop there. They're going to lose my business. And it was interesting. The sentiment behind it was that you should be supporting a local photographer, or you should be, supporting a local designer. And the number of comments that followed that, people like, yeah, that's, it's nice thought, but I And you're welcome to, you get to choose where you shop, but AI has opened up so much more creativity for, it's about evolving your business practices. And
yeah, that's an interesting one, because I think if you look historically at every major technological innovation, from the printing press to the combustion engine to the internet, and here we are today. Yeah, there are some industries that are impacted by those things, no question. But in every case, it actually created more jobs and more opportunity. And I hear what that person says, and I understand the theory behind it. I'm a shop local kind of guy. I love the sentiment behind it. But if I dug in my heels and said, nope, it's horse and buggy, this car thing is just not going to happen, like where would I be today? I think the reality is the world is going to change whether we like it or not. And that person gets to choose what they're willing to spend their money on, and I think that's okay. But I don't know. I'm a big fan of just not trying to fight big technological changes, but rather figure out how do we win with it. I'll just add one more. I think, again, I'm just thinking about the places that I've failed over and over again, and I think the place that I've really evolved is in just that vulnerability or authenticity as a leader. I think I used to be afraid that people would know that I was an imposter. They would know that I didn't have all the answers. And what you actually find, people are drawn to that vulnerability, to being able to help and being invited in to help. So I think, if there's something I would tell, I don't know if it's going to apply to every one of your listeners, but especially the young CEOs, is I think feedback is your friend, but I think vulnerability gives you, I think it's just such an underappreciated skill.
I am going to share that exact piece of advice with one of the executives that I'm working with currently. We're talking quite a bit about how vulnerability is, it came out during the pandemic. It's one of the traits that employees want most in their leader today is vulnerability, authenticity. Because go back to the pandemic, everybody was going through stuff. And if you have a leader that's unapproachable or lacks empathy, or can't go, yeah, this is hard, I'm dealing with it myself, then they present themselves as unrelatable, unapproachable.
I was talking about the fact that 40% of people looking for a job, 30% of them actually cite it as an unaspiring or indifferent leader. And I think just make sure you take time to connect with your team as people if they feel that you actually genuinely care about them. And I mean genuinely, not connecting just for ticking that box, but I think it goes a long way in terms of retention and productivity and doing the right thing by you and your business. I have a podcast called The Future is Borderless. You can check it out on YouTube. It's on Spotify as well. But if you want to learn more about some of the work we're doing at Doxa Talent, it's simply doxatalent.com. It's DOXA talent.com. And then I'm on LinkedIn, and I do respond to all messages personally. It's not a bot and it's not an EA. So if you want to have a conversation on any of these topics or more, I'd certainly invite it.
Excellent. David Nilssen, thank you so much for joining us. Topic that absolutely is relevant to our listeners. Listener, thank you for sticking with us to the end of another episode of the Frustrated CEO podcast. If you are interested in learning more about us, please, or connecting with us, you can connect with Patsy and I both on LinkedIn, as well as if you're listening, check us out on YouTube. Just do a search for the Frustrated CEO podcast. And then definitely connect with us. We have our own LinkedIn company page as well. We're at the Lions Group on LinkedIn. So connect, let's engage. And if you're interested in being a guest on a future episode, then best way to do that is communicate with us through LinkedIn. David, thank you so much. Yeah, it was great. Listener, we'll see you again next time on the Frustrated CEO podcast.